Welcome to another edition of Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock. Lots to get to today with John Ramdeen and Robin Black. We'll be chatting about more injury woes for Rashad Evans. We will, in fact, be getting Romero versus Jacare, and a big fight has been signed for the UFC's debut in the Philippines. The UFC has announced their main event for the May 16th Fight Night card in Manila in the Philippines, and it will see Uriah Faber return to the featherweight division to meet Frankie Edgar. This will be Faber's first fight at 145 pounds since April 2010 when he lost to Jose Aldo at WEC 48. Faber has won 6 of his last 7 at bantamweight, and Edgar has been victorious in his last 3 fights. It was reported on UFC Tonight that the UFC will be holding a card in New Orleans, Louisiana on June the 6th, with Daniel Cormier scheduled to headline the card with Ryan Bader in a light heavyweight bout. Cormier, who was born in Lafayette, Louisiana, will be fighting for the first time since his loss to John Jones at UFC 182 against Bader, who has been successful in his last 4 outings. Ariel Helwani reported on UFC Tonight that the middleweight fight between Yoel Romero and Ronaldo Jacare Souza, which was scheduled for UFC 184 later this month, has been rebooked for April the 18th in Newark, New Jersey on the next UFC on Fox card. The fight will serve as the co-feature underneath the bout between Lyoto Machida and Luke Rockhold. Jacare was forced to withdraw when he was battling pneumonia and took the fight off this month's pay-per-view card. And finally, more injury news from Rashad Evans, this time keeping him out for an additional 6 to 7 months. Ariel Helwani reported that Evans has undergone a second surgery for a torn ACL after the initial surgery didn't correct the problem and his body rejected the cadaver tissue. Evans was scheduled to fight Glover Teixeira later this month, and once Teixeira pulled out of the fight, Evans opted to have the knee fixed. Otherwise, he was going ahead with the fight even though he had the knee injury. Evans has not fought since November 2013 when he defeated Chael Sonnen at UFC 167. And we look ahead to Saturday night's action from Broomfield, Colorado, kicking off on Fight Pass at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we will be bringing you the prelim fights live at 8 Eastern, featuring Nick Lentz headlining against Levon Makashvili, as well as an interesting flyweight bout between Zach Makovsky and Tim Elliott. Main card at 10 p.m. Eastern from Broomfield, Colorado, headlined by Benson Henderson, moving up to 170 pounds as he takes on Brandon Thatch in your 5-round main event. And we interrupt our regular coverage of performance-enhancing drugs to chat about some fights today. I hope John Ramdeen can get through this one. Let's chat about Frankie Edgar and Uriah Faber. It has been signed for May the 16th in the Philippines. The interesting part to this fight is that this is Uriah Faber's return to featherweight for the first time in 5 years against Frankie Edgar. Is it a wise move for Faber? It's a great fight on paper, but if you're Uriah Faber, there's some risk here.
Sure, there's risk, but I mean, it's MMA. There's, you look at 135 pounds or 145 pounds, the top of that division is filled with animals, and for Uriah Faber, this guy's a star. Frankie Edgar's a star. You put them together, you've got a huge fight, and it comes down for Uriah Faber to be involved in the biggest fights he possibly can, because I don't think any of us expect Uriah Faber to competing in the next 5 years. It looks like, over the next number of years, his career is probably going to wind down.
Yeah, I love it on paper. These are 2 of my very favorite fighters, like in the whole world ever. So I love it. But if I'm Uriah Faber's coaches, I'm like, I get it. It's like, let's have big name fights. We're a big name fighter. He's had a few kind of Bruce Leroy's and, upper middle guys at 135. It's fun to do those fights, but he gets up for these kind of fights. So awesome. We're going to have the best Uriah Faber. We're going to have him focus, but I feel like he's got to have a couple new tools against Frankie going up a weight class. He has to have something we haven't seen, because his takedowns are amazing, but Frankie Edgar's wrestling is amazing.
Yeah, awesome.
He's looked great. He's got a powerful right hand and a left hook, but Frankie Edgar's combination striking has been phenomenal. He's got good footwork. Frankie Edgar's got some of the best footwork in the game. I'm scared for my man Uriah in this fight unless he comes in different somehow, because he's a hell of a fighter. He's one of the greats ever at the lighter weights. But if you're Frankie Edgar's guys and you're looking, you've got a lot of Uriah Faber footage to look at, and he is identifiable into a few key elements. He uses the level change. He used that right hand. His wrestling is pretty. It's easier to prepare for Uriah Faber than it is to prepare for Frankie Edgar, and you're going up a weight class.
Now, I said Bermudez, I was meaning Rivera, but you weren't really super impressed with Uriah Faber's performance in that particular fight.
I didn't think he was really getting off there, and at the same time, he probably wants this fight because he knows how good he is. He knows he's a special fighter at that weight.
level again.
And if you come out of there and you're like, yeah, I'm not getting up for these guys. I'm kind of going into training camp and I'm working at 80%. I'm counting on my basics that I know I always win. I feel like that's how he fought in those last couple of fights. And I feel like he may now say to himself, I need to be the best me ever. Going up a weight class, he's maybe just giving himself a huge challenge. I love it, but I always cheer for this man. And this is a very hard one to do because one of my other very favorite fighters who's a killer.
Size will be interesting because it's not like Frankie Edgar's a gigantic featherweight. Uriah Faber might even be bigger than Edgar, but I don't know if that necessarily works against a guy like Frankie Edgar, and you're the bigger opponent, and Frankie, so much of his game is speed and utilizing that footwork.
I just think it's going to be a hell of a fight.
Awesome.
That's what it comes down to. Uriah Faber's fast, he's experienced, he's explosive. Frankie Edgar is probably one of the most intelligent fighters in the game right now. These guys know their role. They know why they're going to be in the main event. They are going to put on a hell of a show. I can just feel it in my bones.
I'm really glad we are getting the Yoel Romero Jacare fight. It's now added to the Fox card on April 18th underneath Luke Rockhold and Lyoto Machida.
Outstanding.
So almost like an unofficial tournament at 185 pounds where you are going to have two contenders, I feel, coming out of that Fox show. And depending on where Chris Weidman's return is, you could have the winners fight. You could have two contenders lined up for Weidman later this year.
However, you say
and if you're Vitor Belfort, he could be odd man out here. And you know what? I'm not complaining. I think those four, I am interested in any one of those four fighters on April 18th fighting Weidman next above Belfort.
I agree, but what you also have to look at, when you're at the top of the food chain, you're thinking, oh, well, the winner of this and the winner of this, well, the winner of this could get himself injured because you're facing the lions of the division. So coming out of a fight against Luke Rockhold, you are not going to be unscathed. You're going to be hurt, and same with Jacare, same with Machida, same with Yoel Romero. There are no guarantees. Just because you win, you could be out for a year.
That's true. You got all four of them going, and you will have two winners, but maybe only one, like, real winner. Another winner who's limping down to the doctor to get something repaired. But it's badass. Those are like four guys in two brilliant fights. Spectacular.
And final thing on Rashad Evans, he's going to be out an additional 6 to 7 months. The initial surgery for his torn ACL not working. He was going to go ahead and fight Glover regardless later this month. He's out now in the 6 to 7 months. He's going to be about 36 when he comes back at this time. This is a real setback. It's going to be 2 years in between fights for Rashad Evans. And this is the part where, you know, Dominic Cruz faced this as well, where you do have your role now as an analyst, and you're starting to look at what is the long term of myself in the sport in a loaded division at that top end at 205, which is an opponent he'll get.
Luckily for Rashad Evans, he got to the top of the division, became a champion, was able to make money. So if he was smart, he can take this time off to recover, recuperate, heal any type of injuries. And at 36 years of age, you know, you only want to have 1 or 2 fights a year.
Yeah, that's true.
That will wrap up our chat for today, but we have more Fight News Now Extra coming your way, so check it out.